everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is me, Brenda Baker. I am here. It is Lambert House Documentary Spotlight. And today in the spotlight, I have Mr. Booker T Briggs, because you know I done said Washington so many times with his name, because I don't know, I'm crazy. But anyway, welcome, welcome, Mr. Briggs, to the spotlight. How are you?
I'm fantastic, and I'd like to thank you for having me on board.
Oh, I'm happy you're here. Well, your story is interesting because you didn't actually live in Lambert, but you started with TIPS. I'm gonna let you tell your story. TIPS was an organization that, like Lambert has now, it was like after school. It was a community service. It provided a lot of things. I was young. I don't remember much of it, but I benefited from it because I was a part of it. So, right. What was your experience, and when did you come to the whole Lambert thing? Because I know TIPS wasn't always in Lambert.
No, TIP wasn't in Lambert during its conception. It started off on 180th Street, but I got involved with TIP doing one of their talent shows. Arthur Crow had put on one of his famous talent shows, and I lived a couple of blocks. I lived on Daly Avenue, which is a block away from where his office was. And I was passing by and I saw flyers advertising the talent show. So I went in and I spoke with, at the time, Arthur wasn't there, but I spoke with someone. So they said, we're having tryouts, so come back and try out for the talent show. That's my first involvement with TIP. So we had a talent show. My first talent show was at 67. I had 67. GQ at that time was the Rhythm Makers. They did the talent show for TIP. All talent shows and everything was done by GQ at that time. But at that time, they were called the Rhythm Makers. Right, I began to go past the center. We call it the center. I began to go by the center coming home from work, and I would see all the kids there and stuff like that. So I went in one day and I finally met Arthur, and I asked him what was TIP all about. And he told me it was a community-based program and they were there to help the community. So I told him that I had filled out a petition to be a member of the talent show, and I did. And from being a part of that talent show, I saw all the wonderful things that he was doing for the community. I wanted to get involved, but I was working a job. But I found time to volunteer for the program. So he asked me, did I want to be a part of the program? And I told him yes. So he asked me, would I take on one of the baseball teams at that time? And I agreed. And that's how I became involved with it. Now, at that time.
What year was that?
That was in like 1971 or 72.
Okay.
See, and he had started up maybe a year before me. Arthur started TIP to combat a lot of the gang violence that was rampant in the neighborhood. You had the Reapers, you had the 5%ers, you had the Black Spades, you had all these different gangs fighting against one another. So my take on what he was doing was to try to get these guys to stop fighting and come together and do something. And he did that by starting talent shows, and the talent shows led to the other recreational activities that he introduced to the neighborhood. I mean, I call Arthur King Arthur because he was a king in our community, because he cared about our community. He did for our community. Our whole community was built around Arthur, from Boston Road all the way to Southern Boulevard. And it even extended further than that, you know. But I became a baseball coach. That we had 3 different teams. We had 2 biddy teams and a junior team. Arthur coached one and I coached one, and a man by the name of Mac. I can't remember Mac's name, but he coached the other. And as the program grew so fast, because he started off in that little storefront right there on 180th and Vice. But before you know it, we were moving across the street into Beck Church. And we had the upstairs, and we would serve breakfast and lunch downstairs in the kitchen. And from there, we went to the other church on 180th, that big church down the hill.
Yeah.
We went in there for a minute. And from there, we went over to the Lambert House. We didn't stay there long. And from there, we went to Tremont Avenue. Now, doing all this, we had programs. Day camp, Play Street, neighborhood youth corps diversion. We worked over 500 kids because we needed kids to work the Play Street, day camp, and other activities that we were having. That's one of the things that he wanted to do. He wanted to make sure kids in the neighborhood got jobs. I was in charge of the neighborhood youth corps workers, where along with those 500 kids, we programmed and coordinated activities for kids from the ages of like 6 and 7 to 21, all those years. And the neighborhood youth corps workers will come in and work, take kids to the zoo, take them on trips, open up our play streets, spend all day with these kids out in the street and stuff like that, you know.
Wow, that's history. So let me ask you this, Mr. Briggs, how were they funded? Who was funding it?
We were funded through Philp Housing. Matter of fact, that's how I got my position really with TIP. Cedar Arthur got me a he got my position through Cedar, which at that, you ever heard of Cedar? Cedar was a program where the government paid my salary, and that was given to TIP through the neighborhood United Neighborhood of Housing. I'm sorry. You know, I'm going back 50 years almost, so thing. And the United Neighborhood of Housing paid my salary and paid salary for other workers also. And Philp Housing also sponsored some of the things that we did, like the tournaments. They helped us with the baseball team. United Neighborhood Housing just helped us with salaries for workers, like mines and Mike's and other workers who work there.
Wow, that is so amazing. So it was really Phipps. And why did Phipps, do you know why were they on like 180th Street and not in Lambert houses? Did y'all ever use the community center?
Sure.
Okay.
We used to. That's what when I said to you, we moved from the church. I think we moved from the church into the Lambert houses.
So was Lambert funding it were they a part of it before you moved to the Lambert houses?
You know, if they were, it was through Phipps, because Lambert was Phipps housing.
Right.
So I'm sure Anita. Do you remember Anita?
I do.
What was her last name, if I may ask you?
Somebody will let us know. Anita,
oh, okay.
I don't know. I can't remember. My memory is bad.
But we.
I called her Miss Anita, so I don't.
Well, that's what everybody call her. I didn't call her Miss. I just called her Anita. Right. You know, and she was a wonderful lady. Mm-hmm. You know, but when we moved from the church, we stayed in Lambert for a little bit. You know, but the program. That's my point. The program grew so fast, and it grew so large until we needed space. So then we moved from there, I think, and don't quote me because, like I said, it's been a minute. We moved over on Tremont. Do you remember when Tip was on Tremont?
No.
Right there at Tremont and Boston Road. See, That's when we got employment added to the program. Earl Bowen used to head the employment part of TIP. He would go out and find jobs for the kids and for individuals from the neighborhood and put them to work and stuff like that. I mean, the TIP really grew, you know. I think it grew faster than what anybody thought it would do, you know. Wow. And also, getting back to the talent shows, we used to go into all the high schools, put up flyers. Roosevelt, the one out there in Soundview, I can't think of the name, the one down on Boston Road, we would put up flyers and all around the neighborhood, and then we would have a tryout for the talent show. Now with those tryouts, we took those kids and put them in the talent show. And the winners were chosen by the audience. So when they were chosen, we took those winners, and our main thing was to get them at the Apollo. But until we could get to the Apollo, we would take them to Brooklyn House of Detention for women, Brooklyn House of Detention for men. We would go into senior citizen homes to perform for them up in Yonkers and places like that. And you might be too young to know Alma John. Did you know Alma John?
No.
Do some research on her. She was a lady who, I had it written down. I didn't want to forget it because I wanted. She was a TV personality who came on every Sunday. She was like Gil Noble. She would go with us into the house of detention for men and women and talk to them. And we thought that was very special, that a lady of her magnitude, and if you do any research on her, you'll see that she was a strong lady, you know. Yeah.
Wow, I'm looking at her now. That's so crazy because I was most definitely a product of all of that. I was in the talent shows. I did all of that. And so it's so, it's so interesting to hear, how it all came about, I definitely, I guess I wasn't that good. I never got to go to any of the facilities, but I was definitely in the talent shows. I definitely was a part of the dance class they had, and a lot of things. Arthur Cryer, I tell my story because maybe you don't know. He's the reason I do what I do. He's the reason why I work with young people. He's the reason why, I have different organizations. I have a step team. I have singers. I have rappers. I do talent shows.
Very good.
He's the reason he inspired me. So he put something in me very, very young, and it took me years to realize where did that come from, and he put something in me that I spread all. I didn't spread it for years. I too worked for Lambert. I worked for Lambert Phipps houses for 10 years. I dance, I did mentor, I taught senior citizens. So absolutely. He's a God. He's huge,
He's God sent.
Yeah.
He was God sent to the community.
Right. And to have you on this show is everything, because you give us this show. A lot of people come on here who lived in Lambert, but you tell the story of what we were talking about, community. My big thing is where are all the programs for the young people, and you tell the story of the beginning. That's the beginning. I don't remember that. I don't really remember where Phipps was, but I know that I thought when I went to it was in a center, but I know we used to have dance in the school across the street. So it's just an amazing story, and I know so many people are going to be so interested in this because this is what we came through, a lot of us, and we just didn't know how it started. I had no idea that it started with Arthur Cryer. Like I knew I was a part of it, but I didn't know he was it. He was it.
Arthur was. One thing about him is he loved his community, and he loved the kids and the people of the community. And that man would do anything. If people would come to him with a problem, he would solve that problem. And there were so many. We also had so many wonderful people that worked with us. People like Kasim Astorwood, who was our karate teacher and our DJ for all of our shows, all of our talent shows. Anywhere Chip performed, Kasim would play. Mike, we had a wonderful lady who was in charge of the women's sport. Kudos goes out to Robin for all the tremendous work she did with women. Her name was Robin Gathers. I think Phil sponsored her position at Tip also. Phil was located down on 34th Street.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said you didn't know what Tip was.
No. I worked. I learned later because I worked for them, and I worked at their location. I think on 23rd Street. So I know they was. Right. I worked in the Phipps buildings. I taught senior citizens.
Okay. Are they still on 34th Street?
I have no idea, but I'm sure they are.
Oh, okay.
But I had the opportunity to definitely to work for them and understand a little bit about. That's why I'm doing this, because I understand on both sides, because they are community. They usually have so much going on for the community, and we're just trying to figure out right now where are they with community service. What are they?
I hear you.
It's real important.
But let me ask you a question. Do people volunteer for you like they used to when Tip first started? Because we had so many wonderful volunteers, and a lot of us worked at Tip and with no pay when we first started off. We had a gentleman, his name was Mr. Hargrave. Tony Hargrove, or they call him Hargrove or Hargrave. Tony Hargrave, he went to college. He went to the college up there in New Rochelle. He was a basketball player. His father did all the photography, all the photo shoots, anything dealing with sports. He would come up on the basketball court and shoot all the pictures of the basketball players. He would come down to the park where we played baseball and take pictures of all of us down there, all the kids and stuff like that. And we had Al Springer. He taught leathercraft in Lambert. Taught kids how to make bags, gun holsters that they could sell to the 48th precinct and stuff like that. All this was volunteer, and Arthur Cryer was behind all that. The time that I spent I see 988. The time that I spent in 988, we used to work out of his house. We would turn his house into an office. That's why I say that he was my king. And his wife, Dorothy, she was my queen, because she was right there with him every step of the way, And I think she was on the board, on one of the boards with Phil Howes, his wife, Dr. Cryer.
Yeah,
don't quote me.
That's amazing. That's just amazing. This man, I cannot tell you that almost every other person that comes on that I interviewed, they mentioned him.
Sure.
They mentioned him,
there wouldn't be no Phil housing if it wasn't for Arthur Brown, because Arthur brought Phil housing into the forefront with the work that he did. He really did. And no, you made a statement. Why wasn't Phil in the Lambert houses or something like that? Phil's office was on the corner of Phil's office was on the corner of Crotona Parkway and 180th Street in an apartment building. It was during that time. The bank was on. You remember when the bank was on the corner?
But there was a
there was a bank on the corner. I forget the name of the bank. And right behind the bank, right there on the corner of 180 and Crotona. If you go down 180 and make a right on Crotona, the first building that you get to, that's where Phil's office was. And a lady by the name of Susan Board was the director of that program.
That name, I do.
That
name, yeah. And
there was another lady by the name of Linda something. You should know her. I can't think of her last name. She was Susan Boss down at Field House down at 34th Street, you know. And then I had all these women. We had a lady by the name of Miss B. With just so many wonderful people.
I remember Miss B.
You remember Miss B?
Yeah.
She was too much, you know, and stuff. Yeah. And then there was Junior Rome. Junior Rome. There was a guy by the name of Reno. He used to teach karate in Lambert in the community room. There was and all this was on a volunteer basis, you know. And these guys, they might have got a stipend after a while, but they didn't come there looking for pay. They just came there to work with the kids and be a part of what Arthur was doing, because Arthur was a very influential guy. He was a singer. He worked with Motown. He worked with all the groups. He used to take us to the Apollo. Kids take us down to the Apollo, get us in the Apollo so that kids could see shows. He knew the man that ran the Apollo. If I'm not mistaken, I think his name was Honey Cole. All these things. I mean, it was a pleasure being a part of Phil, but it was more of a pleasure being a friend of Arthur and knowing him, you know, sure was.
You have an impeccable memory.
Well, girl,
I can't even tell you what happened last week. Your memory is amazing.
Well, I things that mean things to you. Now I'm like you. I can go get up now and go in my room to get something. I get to the door and I stand. What I go in for? You know? But things that truly meant things to me in my lifetime, I remember those things. I treasure them. That's why I remember them, you know. And all of that. It was a big change in my life. I was a country boy coming to New York City, and I saw things that I never saw in my life, you know. And I was given an opportunity to become part of a organization that really. And when he made me, I was the assistant director I was his assistant in recreations. Then he made me the basketball commissioner. And that was a job because we had, I don't know how many hundreds of kids in our tournament. You know, we had like 10 men team, 10 biddy teams, like 10 women teams. You know, we had a lot of kids. Now, all those neighborhood youth corps workers, that's what they did. They worked along in the tournaments. Some of them kept schools. They kept the court clean. You know, he created jobs for the community. And they even brought in housing that he was instrumental in help doing, brought in Section 8 to a lot of the people in the neighborhood that didn't know anything about it. We'll bring them into the office, sit them down, and really explain to them what it was about and what it was. If Tip wasn't in that neighborhood during that time, I don't know what would have become of that neighborhood. When I first moved to New York, we used to walk up Bronx Park South. We used to sit on the bench. It was really nice and stuff like that. You have your girl, you could sit out there. Well, things began to change because of all the violence between brothers and sisters right there in our own community. So Tip came in to change a lot of that, and which it really did. And all the talent shows that those gang and guys were all the members of those gangs got involved in our talent shows and in other things, and that kept them occupied and not idle, not looking for trouble and stuff like that, you know. Yeah.
You think some of that is needed now? Maybe that will help some of the violence?
More so than ever. You know, people don't even know about, they don't truly know what it is to give back, you know. And if some of us realize that, you know, let me just say one thing to you. I had a kid that played junior pony for me. His name was Greg Wigfall. He hunted me down on the internet to thank me and to thank Tip for what we allowed him to accomplish in his lifetime. He became a Connecticut uh, state trooper. He left there and went in the Army. And then he lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. He's a professional filmer. He films shows and things like that. And he called me and he almost made me cry because I used to stay on him when we were training him to play baseball. And I was kind of hard on him because I knew he was a good kid. I knew that he had it in him to be. And this brother called me and told me what I meant to him and how I helped him overcome that city. I felt so good that I wanted to cry. And I'm in contact with him now. I call him every now and then. And there are other kids too that calls me and try to get in touch with me and thank me for the things that I did with them during the TIP program. And it's rewarding to have people to think of you. I mean, I'm 73 years old, man. And for me to have people to call me and say, Booker, you meant this to me. You did this for me. I'm this because of the TIP program. You know, sure, there needs to be more done. I used to run the PAL through the 48th precinct. That was part of my summer job. I would make up a team for the 48th precinct, and I would take that team and we would go down to Yankee Stadium and play other PAL baseball team. And all that was through TIP throughout the prize, you know. Yeah.
I guess, first of all, I want to say congratulations to you. That's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing. That's amazing.
Pays off. Your goodness pays off. Yeah. There's a song. You gotta do good, yeah, and good will come back to you. So if you do good, good gonna come back to you. Sharing myself with others to help. Even right now where I live down here, I help.
Where are you? Where do you live now?
I'm in North Carolina.
Okay.
North Carolina, I'm in Wilson, North Carolina. It was my home, but I left here when I was 17 and I moved to New York. I stayed in New York for 50 years and I relocated back to North Carolina after I met my wonderful wife.
Woo, thank you for your wife today. Shout out to what's your wife's name? Shout out to her because she pulled us through this today.
Her name is Marlene. I moved back here in 2006 and I had been away from home all my life basically. And I just wanted to come back home and then
relax and take it.
Okay.
I thank you so much. You have a wonderful evening. Thank you, sir. God bless you. Thank you.
I thank you more.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.